Okay, I'm back, Biffy.
Groomed or walked? Are you looking for a pet sitter or dog boarding options? If so, call Dirty Paws, Wheeling's newest pet care service, providing the Ohio Valley with everyone's pet care needs. Check us out on Facebook at Dirty Paws WHG or call 304 639 7754.
Oh, there's something so real about living local, and I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I love living local. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Said I'm loving living local. WTRF is working for me. The Ohio Valley is where I love to be.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts.
A serious injury from an accident can be just the start of your worries. What if you cannot return to work? How do you take care of your family if you're disabled? At Gelner Law Offices, we represent seriously injured people and understand their problem. We know how to get you fair compensation. We will work hard to make sure you get the money you deserve for your losses. Don't go it alone. If you're hurt in an accident, call us at 304-242-2900 or visit us at gelnerlaw.com.
We'd like to help.
Quaker Steak and Lube at the Highlands is the perfect place to relax after a long day. Happy hour from 3 to 6 Monday through Friday. Get $2 off appetizers, $3 off domestic drafts, and house wine specials. Quaker Steak and Lube, voted Best Wings USA. Quaker Steak and Lube at the Highlands with another steal of a deal. Get a steak burger and fries all day Monday for only $8.99. It's also Military Mondays. The Lube will take 25% off for all veterans, active duty military, and first responders. Quaker Steak and Lube, voted Best Wings USA.
This is a test of the emergency alert system. This is only a test. This concludes this test of the emergency alert system. If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been told where to tune for news and official information. WKKX serves the Wheeling operational area.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster. With a look at your local weather forecast for your Friday, under mostly cloudy skies, temperatures rise to near 40 degrees. The overnight low falls back to about 26 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. You'll see a mix of clouds and sunshine for your Saturday, with temperatures in the lower 40s. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Why are you so happy? End of the week.
End of the week?
What's today?
Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's Friday.
Well, somebody owes us a Thursday. Either that or 2 Wednesdays.
Good morning, my people. It's your morning shot of adrenaline.
So, are you having a good Friday?
So far, so good.
And we're just getting started. Guess what time it is?
Well, what time is it?
It's showtime.
A fresh take on local, regional, and national news. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe, brought to you in part by Wheeling Hospital.
Well, welcome to a Friday, final hour of the big gig today. What's on the tap for today? Coming up in a moment or two, we'll be talking with John McCabe from the local newspapers. John and I will be kicking around some of the Ohio Valley News Week in review, a couple of catch-up stories that I didn't have a chance to follow up on with you since I was away for the week, and then the Capitol insurrection kind of hopped in and kind of caught me, dominated the rest of the week. So John and I will kick around some of the news of the week and a couple of things that I wanted to make sure we had a chance to at least talk about before the week is over. We talked earlier with my friend, former CIA officer Jack Rice, about the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol this week, and specifically about the 25th Amendment option. Ohio County Delegate Sean Fluharty with us in the last hour, talking about Derek Evans, the West Virginia delegate, who was at the Capitol, part of the insurrection, and should he be removed from his seat? Can he be? How can he be? In the legislature. We're talking about that with Sean in the last hour of the show. I'll have that up on podcast. In fact, I'll have all of this week's podcasts up later today. Didn't have a chance to get the podcast running this week because I was busy doing other things, but we have quite a few things I want you to hear on our podcast page. I'll get those up on podcast before certainly before the weekend is up, and probably before the end of the day today. Currently, as we look at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, the temperature is 27 degrees, 27 at the airport. A little bit of wind blowing around, about 8 miles an hour. Feels like 19. 27 degrees, the actual temp feels like 19. So it's definitely a bundle up and be ready for a cool morning this morning. And the best we'll do today is 37, so be aware of that. Let's talk about news of the week. And to do that, as always, from the Intelligencer and News Register, my friend John McCabe is here. Good morning, John.
Hey, excuse me. Good morning, Howard. How are you?
Didn't mean to catch you on where's there.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. Just looking at some stuff. What's going on today?
Heard a little frog in your throat, that's all.
Yeah, a little bit,
Hey,
yeah.
Why don't we start off with some sad news from your office?
Sure.
Which was the passing of one of your close colleagues, Mike Myers. Bit of a surprise to have seen his passing at the age of 69. I will say that Mike and I agreed on pretty much nothing. But I had a huge amount of respect for him. I thought he was a real journalist. I felt like the paper was in good hands when he was, kind of at the helm there. And it was a really sad passing. Had to have been really bad for you.
Yeah, it obviously just a natural part of life, but you're never ready for it. It was very unexpected. Didn't expect to be headed into work Wednesday morning and learn of that. But I think as we summed it up in the paper, and as you mentioned, Mike was about as old school as you could get. I mean, as I've noted in some of my comments, he was always a good check on my hot-headedness at times and, rash decision-making, which you've been exposed to over the years and your listeners have been exposed to at times. But a kind of a throwback to how journalism, in my mind, should still be done. There's so much at the national level now that's, trying to filter down into, papers like the Gazette and other more regional papers of, we've got to be advocates. We've got to advocate for the positions that we believe in, or this or that. And to me, and I know most certainly to Mike, that was not what journalism was about. We presented information and facts, and what they now call both sidism, which I don't quite understand what both sidism means, but and you kind of let people make up their minds for themselves. We're not, and I think that's part of the problem now is we've got too much media droning telling people what to think, as opposed to presenting them the information and allowing them to make an informed decision as to what they think of that issue. Mike was, Mike, that's where Mike was. Now, obviously on the opinion page, which he was a prolific editorial writer, column writer, different story there. That's the kind of stuff that Fox does. You present, the newspaper's opinion, or with his column, his own opinion. But as a newsman, he was right down the line. Here's side A, here's side B. Present both sides, fact check where it needs to be, and allow the readers, viewers, however you want to look at, allow them to digest that information and make their own decisions. And that's how journalism, when he was in school, when you were in school, when I was in school, that's how it was taught. And we've kind of moved away from that. And I know that's something Mike and I talked about many times, that it really was a bothersome thing. But it's a tough day. Obviously, anytime you lose someone that you work closely with every day for 2 decades or so, it's a big shock. And I think as you said, the things that I'll miss most are just the daily chats. Just he stops by my office, I stop by his, and we talk about something. One thing leads to another, and before you know it, we're looking at an atlas and pointing out these obscure points of interest in the middle of West Virginia or somewhere else. So that's what, and it more often than not would lead to a good story, or at least a good story idea, or something. One of the things we had talked about for years doing, and I'll just put it out there because it's just a big encompassing story. But just kind of the ghost towns of West Virginia, which there are more and more cropping up. Towns like Friendly, which there's just not much left in Friendly, and there's all the old abandoned coal towns, and so things like that when you sit down with someone every day and you can just kind of freely think and discuss, that's what I'll miss most, because it more often than not at least led to the genesis of a good idea or a good column, or just an interesting thing to think about on a Tuesday morning.
When I said online that I had great respect for him as a journalist, and I got a lot of people saying, well, how can you say that? Don't you read his column? Don't you read his editorials? And John, I think it's part of the problem, which you alluded to a minute ago. I think part of the problem we have with the general public anymore is the inability to draw a distinction between the parts of media that are properly opinion and those that are designed to be the factual presentation of information. And again, on the editorial page, although I must say I found myself agreeing more and more with his editorials, not
That's
just
because
columns, but the editorial.
That's, as you get older, you get wiser. Those things happen. That's the natural progression of life. As they say, when you're young, if you're not, a Democrat, and then you have no heart. As you get older, if you're not a Republican, you likely have no brain. So, so Howard, I'd say
I'm not going to jump.
You finally have a
I'm
brain.
not going that far. I'm not going that far. But again, on the editorial side of things, I found myself agreeing more and more than I used to. I still very seldom would agree with any political column he wrote. Mm-hmm. Now, when he would write about helping kids at Christmas time, or write about the outdoors and so on. I always got a kick out of that. But
Sure.
but my point is, people will say, well, don't you read? Yes, I read his columns, and yes, I get irritated by them. But I also know, and Mike and I did not talk often, but when we did, I had a lot of respect for him, and we would chat. I think that he, and dare I say it, you, make a real effort to try to present the news side of the newspaper based on facts and information.
Right.
And the public has got to learn to draw those distinctions. And I think when folks say to me, how can you say that about Mike Myers? Because they don't want to draw that line. I didn't agree with him politically.
But, I think the good thing
but
about
I
it is...
respected what he did as an editor.
Right, and, and the thing about it, too, Howard, that I think is just and I'm always optimistic and somewhat optimistic that what happened this week can maybe start us on a path of maybe a little more mutual respect. And I say not just what happened at the Capitol on Wednesday, but, the results of the election on Tuesday are going to force a much different lay of the land in the Senate, for the next 2 years at least. And it's going to give guys like Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin a lot more power. But, that's not the point of all that. The point is that you can always learn something if you just read or study. I read a lot of opinion and commentary that I don't necessarily, I might shake my head at, but I almost inevitably come away with something either that I didn't know, hadn't really thought of from that point of view, or opens my mind to maybe just some different thought processes. Robert Reich is a good example. It's a regular columnist we run, former, I think he was a Treasury Secretary under Clinton, something.
Labor Secretary.
Labor Secretary. Robert Reich, I don't agree with much, but I generally learn something, from either from some type of labor statistic or financial matter. I learn something almost every time I read his column. Again, I may not agree with his premise and his approach to that issue, but I don't come away angry. I come away thinking, oh, that's interesting. I never would have thought to put that in that perspective or to look at it from that angle or, So I wish we could get back to that. And we can, again, this, I'm not going to say this country was founded on the ability to agree to disagree. It was, it was founded in, after a war, but it's, we can get along and be who we are. We're, I don't expect people to ever agree with me, and I don't, you and I, we agree on a fair number of things, but, you consider you one of my closest friends because we can talk about politics and we can talk about, city, politics, state, national, and have disagreements on where we're at, but you know what? I know who you are. And I think that's the problem today is we don't know each other. We don't know our neighbors.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We just don't know each other anymore. And I was really kind of disappointed more than anything of some of, I ran across a few comments, just kind of negative biting comments about Mike. And I thought, you don't have to agree with him, and I don't expect people to be sheep and ever agree 100%. But, you're a real man when you post something online that you would never say to someone's face, or and it's just like it's just where did we get to this point? And that's what I think where I'm hopeful that the people seeing what happened Wednesday and and now the partisanship or the bipartisanship that's going to happen in the Senate at a 50-50 split, because we know it's not all the control the Democrats might have with having that extra vote with the vice president. People like Joe Manchin are wild cards, and there's a few others. So it's they're going to have to work together, and maybe it allows us to get back to some semblance of normal living. All that around, but Mike is just going to be greatly missed in this area. I think for people who are discerning readers and interested in what goes on in this community, have known that his leadership on the editorial page, whether you agreed or not, was always based on a principled thought process, and and that's something. There's something to be said for that.
I wanted to reference one other thing you mentioned in terms of the overall approach to journalism, I guess, or at least to the opinion side of media anymore, and that is this perpetual desire to find two sides to every story. And I often quote a scene from Fiddler on the Roof, the great musical, Broadway musical, Fiddler on the Roof. Tevye, of course, in marrying off his daughters, or his daughters outside the faith, he's perpetually going up on the mountaintop and going, on the one hand, but on the other hand. And with his third daughter, he goes up and he says, on the one hand, and on the other hand, and he stops and he looks and he goes, no, there is no other hand.
Right.
And I think about it because sometimes there is no other hand. There is no legitimate other side of the story. And I think too many folks feel there's a need for balance, and I go with balance, but it's an unfair balance. You've got a very legitimate, well, let's talk about the election. Let's talk about the presidential election, where the overwhelming amount of evidence says that there was no widespread election fraud. We do not need to give equal weight to the rumors that somehow there was when the facts are that there wasn't. And yet there's this perpetual desire to, well, we have to show the other side. Not always. No, we don't. That's part of what...
No, I agree. There's we have an editorial, a short editorial today on the editorial page. Delegate Derek Evans, as I didn't get a chance to listen to Delegate Fluharty on, there needs to be consequences for what he did. There's no both sides to that. You're exactly right. There needs to be if it's criminal, it's criminal. If it's not being seated in the House, whatever it might be, there has to be a consequence for him going and storming into the Capitol and holding up his camera and acting like a fool. And then posting it online thinking that he's, cool. I mean, there has to be a consequence. There's no both sides to that. There's no excuse. So you're right. I mean, news can be both sides. You can present, the sides of an issue. But on the opinion page, that's where you can, you can present other arguments, but it's there to provide a conclusion in essence, or to prove a point. And so no, I
well, and even on the news side of things, sometimes there simply is. There is no other side, or the two sides don't deserve equal treatment. And I think we've seen a better job of that in recent years about trying to be, to be a little more unbalanced in a good way. But I think that's always been a real problem. John, let's move on. We're talking about the news of the week with John McCabe from the local newspapers here. Again, condolences to Mike and his family. One of his daughters was in my kid's class, my oldest son's class, and she was a delightful young lady then and is now.
Still is now, yeah.
Hate to see a guy leave such a nice family behind. Yeah, it's a really good family and his wife. So condolences to all of them, as well as to his extended family at the newspaper. And you guys all seem to have great respect for him. But let's move on from that, but let's stay on the sad realm for a minute. Another death that made news in the past week or so was the death of Bud Billiard. Yeah,
really, that was very unexpected as well. And as I posted on just a short memorial, I knew Bud just within the last 10 or 12 years, got a chance to get to know him through work, and as he did, he was really involved in improving Brook Hills Park and improving Brook County in general. And so it didn't, that was my exposure to him. And he was a tireless worker to improve his community. You go back to when, heck, he coached when I was in high school, and, he turned a school in Brook High into the preeminent high school football program, for a decade and a half period. And just, in reading some of the tributes from his former players and former coaches, what a coach is supposed to be, a mentor, a leader, a guide through life. The number of former players who still ascribe to his or subscribe to his teachings, 30 years later, of, team before self, and things of that nature. That's the mark of a good coach. And as someone who played sports, and a good coach is like a good teacher. They can provide this this imprint on you that remains. You know, the coach I had my last couple years of high school, Glenn McNew. You know, to this day, just have the utmost respect for him and the kind of guy he was and how he worked. And he worked us hard and he pushed and he demanded and he held us accountable. And that gives you the basis of how you live life. You know, it teaches you at an age when you're very impressionable how you move forward. And Bud Billiard, again, didn't know him as a coach, only what I've read, but he seemed to be that type of a coach. And quite frankly, to do what he did at Brook High, he had to be, because, you know, he took a group of kids and turned that group of kids and turned that whole system into a program. And that doesn't happen by being an absent coach. I mean, he was there, he was involved, he knew the kids. I would be surprised if he didn't call the kids on, Thursday nights before a Friday game at 10 o'clock and make sure they were all home and getting ready to go to bed, and those type of things, because that's what good coaches do. I think they still. I know the good coaches still do it now. I mean, I know that personally, but so. Huge loss to the Brooke County community. Wonderful gentleman, incredible coach, and presence that will again, just a tough week with losing really strong community leaders in our region, Howard.
Absolutely. 23 seasons at Brook High as the football coach, 185 wins, 3 Class AAA state championships. Not a bad record to leave behind. But as you said, John, those numbers, as important as they are, the bigger numbers are the number of kids that he influenced who learn from him and still take his lessons to heart as they go through life.
Yes.
All right, let's get off of death.
Please.
When we come back after a quick break, it looks like Wheeling Pittsburgh Steel Building may be moving forward today. Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, and a couple good announcements in
We'll
Wheeling
talk about
this week.
that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. Also, I want to spend a little time, John, talking about the governor's New Year's Eve party, because we haven't had a chance to talk about it on the show, and I want to catch up on that. Not the governor's party, but the Greenbriers party. So we'll spend some time on that. And there's something weird happening with the Ohio County Development Authority. Those are some of the stories I want to take time to talk to John McCabe about when we come back here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Don't you go anywhere, because we've got news for you right now.
The Metro News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Shauna Johnson.
Hey, Biff, don't play the news and review intro until after I do a FanDuel spot, okay? So just come back with a regular rejoin. I'll tap dance. I'll talk about hoppy maybe for a minute and then do FanDuel. Then we'll go to play the intro for John and I to wrap things up. Thank you.
Dollars in Berkeley County. Torch Clean Energy wants to build a solar electricity production facility. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Shauna Johnson.
This is your VSIN Action Update on the Watchdog. This Action Update brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts, your professional parts people. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Now, here are the latest lines from my guys in the desert.
The latest lines, NFL playoffs that start Saturday. Buffalo at home to take on Indianapolis. The Bills a 6-point favorite, minus 275 on the money line. Colts plus 230, over under at 51. Seahawks at home taking on the LA Rams. Rams quarterback Jared Goff's status still not yet known. The Seahawks are a 3-point home favorite, minus 170. LA plus 150 with an over under 42. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing Washington in D.C. The Buccaneers an 8-point road favorite, minus 400. Washington plus 320, over under 44.5. With your VSIN Action Update, I'm Tony Desiri on the Watchdog.
A serious injury from an accident can be just the start of your worries. What if you cannot return to work? How do you take care of your family if you're disabled? At Gellner Law Offices, we represent seriously injured people and understand their problem. We know how to get you fair compensation. We will work hard to make sure you get the money you deserve for your losses. Don't go it alone. If you're hurt in an accident, call us at 304-242-2900 or visit us at gellnerlaw.com.
We'd like to help.
Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 want to thank the owners and contractors of the Ohio Valley for using their locally trained workers to help build for the future. Local 83 helps design, fabricate, and build the gas infrastructure for the oil and gas industry here in the Ohio Valley. Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 is 300 members strong and growing. They also do residential, commercial, and industrial work on both sides of the river. For more information, call Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 at 304-233-4445.
Listen up, football fans. It's the perfect way to make the playoffs even more exciting this weekend. Same-game parlay bets, and they're available only on FanDuel Sportsbook. The same-game parlay bet lets you combine multiple bets from a single game for an even bigger win during the game. You can combine the money line, over-under, player props, all that into one parlay. And best of all, FanDuel is letting you place a same-game parlay for risk-free. All FanDuel customers can get up to $10 back on your bet if you don't win. Playoffs the perfect time to give that one a shot. Just one of the many ways you'll win on FanDuel. You get the ease of use, fast withdrawals, lots of odds boosts, and other special events when you're on FanDuel. If you haven't done so already, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up to get started. Use my name, Monroe, in the promo code box. You must be 21 or older. You must be physically present in West Virginia or Pennsylvania. The refund is issued as a non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. The maximum refund is $10. Terms do apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gaming problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net.
Oh, there's something so real about living local. And I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I'm loving living local. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Say I'm loving living local. WTRF is working for me. The Ohio Valley is where I love to be.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster. With a look at your local weather forecast for your Friday. Under mostly cloudy skies, temperatures rise to near 40 degrees. The overnight low falls back to about 26 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. You'll see a mix of clouds and sunshine for your Saturday, with temperatures in the lower 40s. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The Valley's most interesting conversations continue now on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe, brought to you in part by Wheeling Hospital.
A couple of items off the text line I guess I should catch up on. One of these is from a couple of days ago, and I hadn't seen it before. Only in America can we let an unqualified, underachieving local resident, I think that's me, an unqualified, underachieving local resident provide legal opinions on the air. And this must reference the president's call to the Georgia Secretary of State. The crime was illegally recording the call with the president without his knowledge or permission. It's not a crime in Georgia. It's not a crime. It's a one-party state. As long as one party is aware it's being recorded, it's not a crime. So I may just be an unqualified, underachieving local resident, but I actually know what I'm talking about, and you don't.
Actually,
Mr.
Howard,
Monroe, what's that?
I don't think that one was intended for you. The one that you just read, if that was from the other day, that may have been one of the mornings that Butch was on.
Ah, that was a Butch one. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
It could be. Well, it still was wrong. It was not a crime because Georgia is a one-party. Some state it's a state law, and in some states, as long as one party chooses to record it, that's all that's required. Don't have to tell or ask permission of the other party. Now, some states are two-party. Some states you cannot be recorded without your permission, but Georgia's not one of them. Mr. Monroe, my sincere sympathies regarding your brother. Thank you. I have been a strong supporter of President Trump for the last 4 years, and I continue to strongly support his policies. Prior to COVID, strengthen our economy in the military. However, the criminal actions that occurred on Wednesday at our nation's capital, the sentence was cut off. I assume he's going to say was not, since it begins with however, I guess he's going to say that was uncalled for. So thank you for that. I mentioned earlier, since I was off for a medical problem early in December and then off a short week for Christmas, short week for New Year's, this week, short week for the funeral. Maybe I should start working a short week, just only working a 4-day week and take a day off. Texter says, take a day off? You currently only work 14 hours a week and it's from your home. So, all right, I guess so. Yeah, Howard, that text was not for you, but for the guy that filled in for you. Okay. But it was still wrong. And finally, off the text line to our Facebook Live feed, Brady says, I'm still waiting for Sean Fluharty versus Ryan Fern's Tough Man matchup. I'd pay $50 pay-per-view for that one. All right. That would be kind of interesting. All right, let's continue our review of the Ohio Valley News Week.
Here's a look at the Ohio Valley Local News Week in Review with newspaper editor John McCabe and Howard Monroe.
John, it looks like there's going to be some kind of movement announced later today on the Wheeling-Pittsburgh Steel building. The mayor and Steve Kuhn are both going to be holding a public announcement. I have to assume this is going to be good news, right?
Yeah, well, I would think they probably wouldn't get together to say the project's not going to happen. I mean, that's a good way to look at it.
That would be my thought too.
Yeah. So no, it from what we're hearing, it seems like a real positive step for Wheeling. A positive first step. These things, as we know, don't happen overnight, and they take time. Mr. Kuhn, I mean, what's it been? Several years now has been kind of evaluating that building and trying to get together financing and having all these different deadlines. And of course, that project went from, a parking garage where your offices are located to that not being, that the cost on that being really bad and being a lot of public uproar. And then, then the city purchasing the Chris Miller and the, well, not the city, we'll say the Ohio Valley Area Development Corp., since we're talking about the Ohio County Development Authority, same type of an organization, buying the old Chase Bank and Chris Miller building. But it looks like a good announcement expected today. I think that's 1 o'clock today. That they're doing that. So good start to 2021 for Wheeling. I will say in the first week of the year we're going to have this announcement. Our old friend Robin Capehart was up on Tuesday to sign a memorandum of understanding for that local college, Bluefield State, to open up a facility potentially at the former OVMC property. And I find that the whole dynamics of that very interesting, Howard, given that Bluefield State is about as far south as you can get in West Virginia.
It's about a forest you can get away from here.
But they say they've identified a need and for this region for some applied engineering programs, hoping for a couple hundred students there. And again, just a positive after a year in which there wasn't much positive, and there was a lot of but COVID aside, just a lot of different things happening with building options in public safety buildings, et cetera. 2021, at least the first week, has been seems to be a particularly fruitful one for the city of Wheeling.
And we've got the streetscape project moving forward apparently this year.
Howard,
main
we'll
project.
let's hold out on that one until it actually starts, please. I don't want to get that one too far.
Just wait until it begins. Okay. Well, we have heard this before, I guess. But,
yes.
But it looks like some good stuff on the horizon for the city of Wheeling. I will certainly say that. And again, we'll learn more this afternoon about the Wheeling-Pittsburgh Steel Building. I'm assuming they'll probably have an announcement having to do with the parking garage at the same time, because I think Mr. Kuhn said all along without the parking garage, without some kind of parking, it doesn't make sense. So looking forward to seeing what they have to say this afternoon.
Yes.
Now, John, you mentioned the Ohio County Development Authority. Something weird is going on there. It was announced a couple weeks ago that Greg Stewart, the longtime Ohio County administrator, was going to be leaving that position and taking essentially a new position as, I don't know what the title was, but he's going to run the Highlands. He's basically going to run the Highlands.
Right.
Which, frankly, is something I have said, and I think you and I have both said for years, it needs to be done. For Greg Stewart to be worrying about water lines and fire departments and that kind of stuff as an administrator, and also to try to oversee the Highlands, I thought was too much. So it makes sense for Greg Stewart to have become the Highlands administrator, or whatever the title was. But then something weird seemed to happen. The contract that was presented, and help me with this if I'm wrong, the contract that was presented and approved is not the contract that had originally been written. Randy Wharton, who is a president, chair, whatever the title is, of the OCDA, had said, maybe I shouldn't have allowed the vote to go forward. Then the county commissioners made some big changes in the Development Authority makeup, removing some members and adding new ones. What the heck's going on there? I mean, there's something is going on. What's going on?
Well, do you remember, I think it might have been, I can't remember if it was Fox or CNN, but one of the two major opinion networks, cable news networks, they used to have a show called Power Play. That's what's happening here. I think it's pretty clear that the new county commission, because again, we've gone from a county commission that consisted of Randy Wharton, Tim McCormick, and Don Nickerson, to now two Republicans and Zach Abraham and Don Nickerson, along with Randy Wharton. So it's this move with Greg, from some things I've heard. The initial contract that was drafted had left him as a county employee. Then it was switched to where he was no longer a county employee, and he had his own. He created his own management company in essence, and so it just
the original contract was simply with him as a person,
right,
to be the administrator of the Highlands, or whatever the title was.
Correct. Yes.
But somebody somehow changed that contract to actually it became a contract with a new company that Greg would own.
Right.
And he would work for the company. Now, those are very different things between being a county employee and being a contractor with the county.
Sure, yeah. And, one of them, obviously, Greg's been a long-time county employee, so he would have been eligible to collect his pension and then also get paid. So that was part of it, which I don't, in that type of a circumstance, it's not like in Ohio, in essence, where public officials double dip and they go back and take the same job, so that was part of it. But I think the other part, for from again some things I've heard, is that this took control of that position away from the county commission, and it that may be the crux of this whole matter right now. Is again an initial power play by the Development Authority, maybe certain members on the Development Authority to exert more control as members of that group, which is not really, they're appointed by the county commission, but not, they don't necessarily have to be run by the county commission now, but they have been historically. But then, at first chance they got, the two new commissioners and well, I say two new, the two Republican commissioners along with Randy Wharton, pushed some big changes through, replaced some prominent members on that board who'd been there for a while, and again exerted what I see is a little more control over the direction of that board and how it would operate.
Former Mayor Andy McKenzie removed from the board, current Mayor Glenn Elliott replacing him.
I find that one interesting, don't you? I find that an interesting replacement between those two.
I would have to think that if you're reading between the lines, somebody wasn't happy with something Andy McKenzie was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know anything about this. I have not done any checking into it yet. I intended to, but it was a bad week for me. But that certainly seems to be the obvious implication there. And somebody had the power to put a new contract into the meeting. Again, original contract was a contract with Greg Stewart to stay as a county employee.
Right.
What ended up getting voted on was this contract with a new company that Greg would work for. And that was done without, apparently, Randy Wharton, at least knowledge, if not all the commissioners. So somebody did that. And if I remember correctly, John, somebody called an extra meeting of the OCDA.
Yes.
And it was not Randy Wharton who would be able to do that, nor two members of the commission or whatever were supposed to do it. But somehow, some way, an extra meeting got called. There's something going on there.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sure things will continue to move, and we'll continue to learn more. But it is really an interesting. It's been kind of an interesting couple weeks to watch the dynamics of that play out. As again, the High County Development Authority, for its existence, pretty much over the last decade plus, has worked in relative obscurity. We cover their meetings, but their members. It's just not a board. It's a board that comes in and I don't want to say rubber stamps because that's not correct, but followed the direction that the county commission put forth with things of that nature. So there were some problems though. At the meeting in particular with the contract for Greg Stewart, they've got some real issues with meetings, right? With how they handle their meetings. Their audio's really bad. You can't ask any questions. They don't respond to questions. A lot of that was, frankly, part of how it had been done for years. But I know, our reporter had a heck of a time at the meeting where they hired Greg Stewart. They basically put the mic in the corner, and so you could hear snippets of what was going on. Even the county's legal counsel or the board's legal counsel there, he called it, essentially like shadow boxing, where you can't preclude the public from hearing what you're talking about. So I think what we're going to find, and what I hope,
in that meeting, the first meeting with the contract, they went into executive session, which you can do for a personnel matter, but you really can't do it with a contract matter.
No, you can't. And that's, what I'm going to say is that these are how these meetings have probably been run for a long time, and and how this board has operated. And it doesn't, it's a government agency, but it's not, but it still applies to, open meetings laws and things of that nature. But they, I think what we're going to see as we head into 2021, as we head through this year, Don Nickerson and Zach Abraham both ran on a platform of being transparent to the public. And I know when this meeting first happened in the contract with Greg Stewart, and they didn't want to release it, and they were being secretive about it. And I spoke with Don Nickerson and said, this is I had Jocelyn King speak to him and said, just let him know, hey, you ran on a platform of being transparent. And of course, we had the contract the next day and reported on it. But I think what we're going to see from the development authorities once they get these processes worked out, and is you're going to see probably, at least what I hope is more openness to the public, and more inclusive meetings where if people want to call in and listen, they can actually hear what's going on, and again, just a better way forward in 2021.
And it's a reminder that we have tended, we the general public, and maybe we in the media even, have tended to consider the OCDA and the county commissioners as kind of the same, and they're not. I mean,
no, they're not.
The OCDA
exactly.
is a separate entity that does run the Highlands, and
Mm-hmm.
and we're seeing some independence being shown here for whatever reason. So it's going to be interesting. It's a story I suspect that we'll have to learn more about as time goes by.
Yeah.
All right. John, I'm out of time for this segment. I appreciate your time today as always, and I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thanks, Howard.
And we will chat again next week, although I'll probably talk to you before then.
Sounds good, sir. Have a good Friday.
All right, you too. Managing editor of the local newspaper. Actually, what's his title now? Editorial director or something for the Ogden papers. John McCabe with us every Friday. Let's head over to the Big Seven, WTRF TV. Bob Westfall is here. Good morning, Bob.
Morning, Howard. How are you?
Haven't talked to you all week long, I don't think so. It's good to chat this morning.
Good to have you back.
What are you working on today?
Okay, one of the big announcements today, the city of Wheeling is, along with Steve Kuhn, who was with Kuhn Restoration, some big announcement with the Wheeling Pit Steel, the former headquarters there, one of the bigger, more beautiful buildings downtown. The announcement today is at 1 o'clock. We will be there. We will cover it. We'll let you know what's going on. We were there with Tessa when they first started the renovation, so we're really excited to see what all has changed. So that announcement today at 1 o'clock.
I have to assume that the announcement is going to be the project. I have to assume the projects are moving forward. What I'll be curious to see is where this proposed parking garage that supposedly was going to have to be part and parcel of it, how that project is developing too. So that'll be, I assume they'll be having to address that this afternoon when they get together.
Yeah, that is one of the questions we'll be asking about. Because obviously that, as you said, that was part of the, I don't want to say deal, but part of one of the first things that was said about that location and the need for a parking garage. So that is something we'll be asking about. A couple other things we're working on is Augusta Levy Learning Center has moved into its new location officially. I think they kind of like a retailer. They soft opened a couple weeks ago, but they wanted to make sure everything was in place. So we're going to go over, check out this new place. As you know, they've huge help to autistic children across the valley. Former place burned down a couple years ago. We were there for that as well. So we're really kind of excited to see how this is going to continue to help the community at large, because they just do a huge support for any family that has an autistic child.
Yeah, they've really grown a lot from their very, very beginnings, and this is a new chapter for them, which is a really neat thing.
Right. So we're going to have that. Another story we're working on. Shelby Davis is going to work on this. Gentleman worker from New Orleans as a pipe fitter. Martins Ferry is working on a job in New Orleans as a pipe fitter. Was shot down there. He's in the hospital. They're trying to get him home. We're going to talk to his girlfriend about what the financial situation is. I know they set up a GoFundMe, so they're trying to get the money together to bring him home. So we're going to sit down and talk to her today. We'll have a little bit more on that as well. And of course, the Ohio State Alabama game is coming up, fast approaching. I think Monday night, national championship. Scott Nolte will continue his coverage on that huge game. So that's something going on that we're following as well.
Lots going on this Friday.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We've got a full board up there today.
Well, we'll be watching at noon 5, 6, 10, and 11, and of course 5:30 for the statewide show. Big statewide issue, of course, is this Derek Evans story.
Yes.
The delegate that has been at the center of some controversy since he was part of the insurrection at the Capitol. And does he stay or go for in the delegates race? Or in the delegates in the House of Delegates, and
right.
I'm sure that Mark will have some coverage of that coming up in the 5:30 segment as well. And of course, as things develop, and I'll be looking to see during the day if you get me some info up there on your website, WTRF.com, or your Facebook page about what's going on with Wheeling Pittsburgh Steel, because this could be a big exciting day for the city of Wheeling if things are moving forward.
Yep. John doesn't sleep. He's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we'll definitely have something up on that here shortly.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Good talking to you. And we will try it again on Monday.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
All right. You too.
All right,
That's
bye-bye.
it for now. I got to say sayonara, see you, bye-bye, farewell. I got to go. I got to get out of here. However, good Lord willing, creeks don't rise. Bat phone doesn't ring. Don't get impeached. Don't retire. Ticker keeps on ticking. And Teddy says it's okay to go back to work tomorrow, Granddad. Monday, Granddad. I'll be back Monday morning, 7 o'clock, and they go around to the big gig. Are you back with me, Brother Biff?
I will be back tomorrow, and I will join you Monday for another week.
We are going to keep on doing it until we get it right.
That could be a long time.
Indeed.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
Clark, the flag over the U.S.
Okay, Biffy. Guess we made it through. Jack is really good, yeah. I have a great, he never says no. I should use him more often. I just don't always think about it, but I thought he'd be good for this one. I'll probably get him on again sometime soon. I just got to keep him in mind. I have no idea what I'm doing next week yet. I get nothing scheduled. I may follow up on this Ohio County Development thing if I can get hold of Randy Wharton or someone. There's something funny happening there. Yeah, somebody is trying to pull strings they shouldn't pull, and I'm not sure who it is. I'm not sure who's right, who's wrong, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, I should be around today and all weekend long if anybody needs me. I've kind of got everything else put away, so I'm here if anyone needs me. I'll send you a promo, and just call me if you need anything, that's all. Yeah, it's time for Paper Mario, I think, coming up next. Yeah, exactly. All right, I'll talk to you Monday. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Seems, says ABC's Kaylee Hartung.
A new study that hasn't yet been peer-reviewed says Pfizer's vaccine has been found to protect against the 2 variants of the virus that are circulating out there. And Moderna's CEO, he is now saying that they believe their vaccine could protect us for a couple of years.
Financial markets are trading higher, and that's despite the December jobs report showing the U.S. economy lost 140,000 jobs last month. You're listening to ABC News.
The Rocket Mortgage Super Bowl Squares Sweepstakes is back. It's the largest official game of Super Bowl Squares ever, with millions of dollars in prizes, and best of all, it's free to enter. Every score change, someone wins $50,000. Just enter for free at RocketMortgageSquares.com, and it could be you. Touchdowns, field goals, safeties, extra points. Every single score change will draw one lucky winner from the square to win $50,000. Plus, 2 grand prize winners will win $500,000 they could use toward their dream home. One way to enter, 2 ways to win. See rules and enter for free at RocketMortgageSquares.com. Then tune into the Super Bowl on February 7th to see if you bring home some dough. Rocket Mortgage, official mortgage sponsor of Super Bowl 55.
No purchase necessary. Legal residents of the 50 U.S. and D.C. of age of majority. Ends 2/4/2021, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030. The NFL entities as defined in the official rules have not offered or sponsored this promotion in any way.
President-elect Joe Biden making more picks to fill out his cabinet.